welcome back to Storytime with David Booker. Today we're going to continue on with SOLEMAN The Heeled Avenger. And today we see the last reading we did the shoes and how these shoes with mystical properties worked for good or evil. The boots were for evil, the shoes for good. And today we're going to meet the hero of our story. So let's get that going. Perry stood in back of the shoe store, minutely examining the pair of shoes a customer had tossed in the trash. The salesmen were constantly ribbing him regarding his shoe fetish. He consistently reminded them that it was no fetish, but a desire to cultivate an analytical process for the selling of shoes. Tom walked in as Perry was completing his examination. He considered that all this talk of analysis was to hide somehow Perry got off on the smell or some other facet of the cast-off shoes. Seeing the look of disdain from Tom, Perry held the shoe in question on the palm of his hand and delineated its findings, pointing out the various points of interest with a small magnifier. From the wear marks on the corner of the heel, this gentleman walks duck-footed with his feet splayed turned up. He also walks predominantly on the heels. He pointed to the deeply worn away portion, which suggests the probability of bunions. He's overweight, indicated by the depth of the area worn away, versus the fact that the shoe was only put out for sale 2 years ago. He has calf pain as well as pain from the bunions, a classical consequence of walking as he does. He showed the underside, pointing out the groove marks of a slight twist from the pain. I would suggest oversizing his shoes slightly, using the pads under the tongue and at the rear, as well as 2 sets of innersoles to ensure proper fit and comfort without causing the bunions to inflame. Tom looked at the indicators. Well, I'll tell you, it was one of my customers, and it so happens you're right. He had a lot of pain from his toes, and as a consequence, he did walk on his heels and all the rest. Hell, but you probably saw him come in and deduced all that just from the way he was walking. Perry denied having seen the customer. Well, as you know, we are not allowed on the floor until called out by the mic man. This ensures that all salesmen are given a fair share of customers, and no one purloins another person's sales. I've been deep in analysis on a wide variety of discarded shoes in the interim and have not set foot outside the confines of this enclosure. Tom handed back the shoe. Is it possible for you to speak normally? Perry tossed the shoe into the bin and wiped his hands with convenient shoe cloth. I do speak normally for one of my intellectual attainments. He bowed his head modestly. Tom headed back onto the floor with a pair of size 10 brogues in brown, only to turn round immediately. If you're so brilliant, why, pray tell, are you selling shoes? Perry shrugged. I have a gift of analysis and use it whenever capacity is afforded me. Must admit I have yet to find the suitable outlet for these gifts, and am trying to various employments as a means of researching my proper sphere. Here now, and I will use it in the selling of shoes. I did the same when I sold men's suits and also in kitchenware. The benefits of an analytical sales are obvious since, as you may be aware, I rank highest in commissions as well as in repeat customers. Being in the upper echelon and so forth, I have acquired animosity of my compatriots who do not foresee that I will be here much longer, as they have determined that I am detrimental to the furtherance of their known commissions. He sighed heavily. It is the same tale and a different story. Fortunately, I am of independent means and do not rely upon the meager salary and commission they offer here. I do this to alleviate the ennui of existence. He sighed again and sat down comfortably to wait upon his next foray into the sales floor. A voice from the speaker summoned him. Customer for Perry, men's shoes. Checking himself in the mirror and round, he strode majestically onto the sales floor. His customer was near the tennis shoes and was slovenly dressed and unkempt in appearance. Hardly the style of customer he was accustomed to, but a sale is a sale. Who knew? His customer might be a diamond in the rough. Somehow, though, he very much doubted it. Perry cast a glance of irritation at the young man working the microphone, who shrugged and went back to his paperback. Approaching the customer, he put on his best service smile. Good day, sir, and how may I be of assistance? The man pulled a pair of low-priced sneakers off the shelf and held them out. Take a pair of these, size 10 and a half. Barry was about to begin a sales pitch for a better pair that was only slightly more expensive but would last longer. But a glance at the man's face told him that this was a rush order. Finding the shoes, he brought them out to find the man impatiently waiting in his stocking feet. His toes showed through the holes in his socks. The shoes he had been wearing were nowhere to be seen. Handing over the shoes, he inquired where the old ones were. The man said nothing, just slipped on the new pair without even tying the laces, paid the cash at the cashier, and ran out into the thunderstorm. Irritated on being sent a customer who would obviously present no commission, Barry admonished the young man at the mic for sending him a worthless customer. Excuse me. The young, the young, I swear that's just lemonade. The young man at the mic shrugged. Look, you were next in line. I'm going to pick and choose who goes to whom. You don't want the customer, then let me know, and you can forfeit them, and the next person in line will take them. The manager behind him indicated the young man was perfectly correct. Harry grumbled, but accepted the remonstrance. He could have turned down the customer with a meager commission. As he thought about the last transaction, something about the customer was bothering him. They had been in such a hurry that they had removed their shoes, placed new ones on, and just tucked the laces in untied. Also, it was the matter of the vanishing pair that they had come in with. With a fierce storm outside and few customers inside, Perry was sure to be free for a while. Pulling out a notebook, he wrote out pertinent information regarding the customer he had just taken care of. Approximately 20 years old, ripped shirt on upper right shoulder, showing recent scratches on skin. Dirt on the lower left side of shirt with slight green stain, indicative of grass stains. Hair greasy with slight tufting of white particles, probably dandelion tufts. Western Star belt buckle. He stood in place trying to figure out what the customer had done with the cast-offs. Approaching the mic person, he inquired if his customer had moved from the spot he had found him at. Negative. Barry's opinion then, there was only one place where the shoes could have been hidden. Retrieving the plastic gloves he used when dealing with customers' feet who had questionable hygiene, he slid the hidden latch and opened the cavernous area behind the floor mirrors. Sure enough, there were the cast-off shoes. It was also a horrendous odor. Pulling the shoes out and bagging them, he tossed them out the rear door for collection later. The store manager looked outside and then into the empty place filled with expensive salesmen lounging around looking bored. Anyone who wants to leave is free to go. You could see them debating leaving or waiting for the storm to break. Even in the storm, it was possible there might be a run on Totes overshoes. For Perry, there was nothing to debate. He had a self-appointed appointment with the forces of the law. Perry flung his long overcoat over his shoulders and headed for the exit. As he passed the shelf with the old stock that his manager allowed to be freely taken, Perry was blinded by the flash of lightning bolt that struck outside. When his vision cleared, he saw a pair of black slip-on shoes that he hadn't noticed before. They appeared to be glowing, retaining a sheen from the light emanating from outside. Without thinking, he automatically picked them up and pocketed them inside his jacket. Skirting the building, he snapped up his bag and splashed his way into his car. In the car, he tuned into the police channel on the Citizen Man radio. Repeat, a robbery occurred at 1321 Margot Lane, Skokie, Illinois at 12:27 this afternoon. Suspect was male, approximately 20 to 25 years of age, short brown hair, wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans. Last seen heading east on Margot Lane. Officers are on the scene. Location was less than a mile away. Perry decided it was worth a visit, that he could take the probable culprit's shoes to the station or find an interested police officer to present them to. Beside him, the evidence sat quietly festering in a plastic bag, the odor from the shoes slowly seeping through the plastic. He made a long arm and put them in the back under a blanket. Oh, hold on one second, the damn things. I hate having to do this on a tablet. Hold on one second. There we go. Let me turn this off. There we go. Now we're good. Heading up Margot Lane, he saw flashing lights and several police wandering around. He parked across the street and watched them in action. They appeared to be going over the grounds in a haphazard fashion, as though their heart, not to mention their head, was not in the work. In the glow from the street light, he saw the sheen of rainwater gleaming off their coats and hats, and perhaps it was the rain that was deterring them from enthusiastically following the criminal trail. Deciding that his evidence might assist them in comparing shoe indentations, he grabbed the bag and tried to catch the attention of one of the officers. Waving his hand, he shouted out to an officer standing near the fence, "Excuse me, I think I have some evidence you should see." The officer turned slowly. His face was not friendly. He looked as if he had just been going off duty when the call came in. He snatched the bag Perry held out to him and opened it. The bag fell as the reek of mold and festering foot sores assailed the officer's nose. "Where the hell did you find these?" Perry pulled out his notebook importantly and began his tale. "Well, I work at Chernin shoes store at the MG Mall. At 15:30, a male customer, approximately 20 years of age, came in to purchase some new shoes. Those you have were his previous pair, which he had secreted in a compartment in the rear of the floor mirrors. He had a slight tear on the upper right-hand rear shoulder and a fresh scrape on his skin. He had brown hair and grass stains on the knees and border of his shirt. When he departed the store, he left in an easterly direction. Philip closed his notebook and waited for the approbation he felt was his due. Usher turned his back on him and went about his business. Perry was understandably perturbed. No thanks, no gratitude, and no recognition for the assistance he had nobly given the bastions of the law. Trotting through wet grass and stomping through ankle-deep puddles, his sodden shoes began to irritate him. Sliding them off, he placed them in the rear of his car and pulled off the fresh shoes he had taken from the shelf. From the glove compartment, he pulled out a fresh pair of socks. This compartment held not only socks, but handkerchiefs and 3 pairs of clean underwear. Perry believed in always being prepared for emergency. Drying off his soaked feet with a convenient rag, he donned his socks and shoes. He was thankful to find they fitted him comfortably. As the shoes slipped on, a tingle of energy and enlightenment flowed through him. In the flash of lightning, they glowed once more. Suddenly he was sure of himself, and at last understood his purpose. It was as if he was seeing himself outside himself and looking back. "Fine," he thought angrily. "If they won't acknowledge my assistance, then I will capture this perpetrator alone." On the drive home, he contemplated how to do this and not get himself in trouble. Memory took him back to watching his favorite heroes on the television: the Lone Ranger, Batman, the Phantom. They all wore masks and had an alter ego. In deep reflection, he decided to create a whole new persona for himself. Remembering the shadow stories he had read in his youth, he would create for himself an alter ego that would strike terror in evildoers' hearts. But it must be unique. Having a turn for deduction and recently proving its accuracy through the confirmation by Tom, he felt his talents must be used in more than the expedient of selling shoes. For his persona as a hidden avenger in a never-ending war on crime, he decided on the name SOLEMAN, The Heeled Avenger. Well, at least it would be a temporary working title until he could think of something better. Stepping into his elegant abode, he strode purposefully to his bedroom to begin his transformation. Looking around the room, he carefully picked from his splendid clothes for the right look. Secreted in this closet were a pair of black pants of a sleek design with the faintest hint of blue stripes, a black shirt with long sleeves over which he placed a rich dark brown leather vest. Intrigued with the theme, he wove a brown knit-style tie from extra laces he had. A two-tone handkerchief that took in the color scheme added the finishing touches to his ensemble. Finally, his long trench coat would blow menacingly in the breeze, yet keep him warm and dry. He found a fedora with a wide brim coupled with brown, tight-fitting driving gloves. He gave the shoes a spit-shine polish and added silver tips to the front and heels. He looked into the mirror and liked the menacing facade he projected. Holding the brim down, it effectively shaded the upper portion of his face, adding to his mysterious appearance. Sure, he would strike terror into the hearts of evildoers. He now needed armaments. While the idea of shooting or even seriously harming someone was abhorrent to him, he realized that the criminal element had no such compunction. He would still need offensive as well as defensive accessories. He needed objects that also fit in with his new persona, and he knew just where to find them. As a top salesman and one who was always on time and reliable, his manager had given him the keys to the store. And in fact, he was the de facto manager at times. He opened the rear door and made his way to the manager's office, turning off the alarm as he passed it. From the sales tools locker, he filled his pockets with all he would require. A couple of shoe forms fit snugly into his back pockets. He fashioned a whip of extremely long bootlaces, affixing them through the hole in a shoe repair handle. A leather strap to hold it, and the whip was tucked into the belt. For throwing, he placed several hard rubber heels into his pockets. Lastly, extra thick laces to truss the villain up in. Leaving money to cover the cost of the items he had removed, he felt ready. From his locker, he took his scarf to place across the lower half of his face. Sweeping swiftly back outside and walking with long strides, his trench coat billowed behind. He glanced into a window as he passed it and liked the view his reflection presented. He looked as menacingly as he felt. He re-entered the back of the store to gain access to information. His brilliant mind had already deduced that the perpetrator of the robbery was a former employee of this very establishment. The fact that they knew about the latch that opened the chasm behind the floor mirror indicated as such. The locking mechanism was such that the average customer would not have been able to open it easily or even be aware of its existence. Going through his manager's index cards, he checked off the previous employees. His manager kept their information in case he wanted to rehire them. Upon reading the reasons for their termination, he found the one he wanted, Jack Morgan. Truly a lost soul if there ever was one. He had been terminated for selling shoes and pocketing the proceeds instead of sending them to the register. He couldn't fathom why the manager kept their information. This was hardly a person you want to have some set foot in the store again. A soft chuckle issued from Perry's throat as he replaced everything as it had been, and turning off the alarm, he swiftly made a departure. Into the night, he raced to a 74 black Buick LeSabre, newly rechristened the Midnight Stiletto. Approaching Morgan's residence, he turned off the engine and coasted to the curb. He arrived in time to see the young man heading cautiously out on another theft. It was time for action. He paused, trying to figure out an appropriate adage. Time to stop out crime. When the thought occurred to him, he decided it was a good enough catchphrase and determined to think up a whole new slew of them. Following Jack from across the street, he kept outside of the streetlights and in the shrouding darkness. As he silently progressed, he was thankful for the quiet soles of the new shoes. Had chosen his other pair, the cleats and the heels would have given the game away. Jack seemed to know exactly where he was going. The fact that his destination was of ill intent was shown implicitly as he walked with a crouching stealth that kept him hidden from the possible prying eyes of those homes as he passed, ignited by the penetrating eyes of SOLEMAN. As he glided onward, a thought occurred. I must look over my collection of music for an appropriate theme. He considered a few melodies as he followed with quiet speed. Peter Gunn theme was an obvious choice, but he considered Harlem Nocturne more appropriate for saxophone noir feel. Jack slowed and crouched still further. Solomon was sure that here was where Jack intended to procure ill-gotten gains once more. Jack leapt over the fence and headed towards the basement windows. Working with a thin jimmy, he soon had the latch pushed away and forced the window open. Placing a thin metal rod to hold the window extended, he slithered through, landing softly. Inside, Solomon was unsure if he should follow, prevent the theft, or wait until the fait accompli. He considered that waiting was a better option. It was better to capture him with the purloined goods. Need another drink. The occupants were all, to all appearances, not home or were soundly sleeping the untroubled repose of the just and honorable. He saw the flicker of light as the flashes from Jack's flashlight sought items to steal. Soleman maneuvered himself to a position for immediate surprise and capture. A black pillowcase filled with ill-gotten spoils was thrust out and rolled away from the window. Soleman's gloved hand sought for the whip at his side. A grunt from inside the house indicated that Jack had made a leap for the window. From his pocket, Soleman pulled out a rubber heel. As Jack's hands clutched at the pane he was pulling himself up, Soleman let the heel fly, hitting the strip of metal. Perry was thankful that over the years he had progressed in ability to excel at games where aiming was of paramount importance. The window abruptly slammed shut, striking Jack's head with the frame and jamming his fingers in a painful embrace. A strangled cry of rage and agony was heard in the air as Jack struggled to pull himself up and open the window with his head. The pain increased as he pushed with the portion of his forehead that had been the initial recipient of the blow. Soleman slowly uncoiled the whip as Jack rolled out the window. Wincing as his mangled hands clutched at the heavy pillowcase, his fingers barely closed enough to have a good grasp. Groaning as he made his way towards the fence, he started when he saw the dark, shadowy figure before him. It spoke in a sibilant whisper that seemed to issue menacingly from the night. "You are a heel and have no soul." A gloved fist lashed out. The whip cracked, surrounding Jack's legs, and with a jerk of the handle sent him sprawling backwards. Whipping out his laces, he trussed Jack up and secured a pre-written note onto him. Compliments of Soleman. He strode swiftly to the corner and entered a phone booth, placed a call to the official forces. Moments later, a police car arrived with flashing lights and sirens blaring. The officers found Jack bound alongside the stolen articles. As they carried the prostrate form to the squad car, Solomon heard them discussing the mysterious avenger who had beaten them to the capture of this dastardly villain. One turned to the other. "Looks like town has a new hero. I wonder when we'll hear from them next." The other looked around and sighed. "I don't know, but it's good to know that somewhere out there is another guardian of justice." Later in the moonlight, a shrouded figure was seen standing above Chernins. Its shadowy form was vaguely visible in the darkness, with a long coat flapping in the breeze. A man of mystery who fought on the side of the law, a man who could hold his tongue, a hero who was well heeled, a hero with soul. Soleman was on duty. So the next one is The Game is Afoot. I appreciate you being here. I hope you're enjoying this one. That's the first chapter, or the first real chapter of Soleman The Heeled Avenger. So I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days when we read the next chapter, The Game is Afoot. So that's it for today. Be good to yourself, and I look forward to seeing you in the next reading. Bye-bye.